D. McClung, March of Monologues. Again, here I am. All right. First off, I want to say a few words about the, how would I call it? Inappropriate removal of my comments and my episode, which is 33I or J. Is it J? I think it was 33J. 34J. Nope. It's been a couple of days that I got lost here. It's all right. So at any rate, I think I got it written down here. Let me think. Let me see. I don't even have it written down in the notes. That's not good. All right. I'm pretty sure it was episode 33. All right. So at any rate, I'm going to read what I wrote. Apparently my appeal of YouTube's erroneous decision to remove one of my episodes has been rejected and no further appeals are permitted. Their decision is final, even though it is wrong, and I explained very clearly why it was wrong in my original and apparently only allowed appeal. What I find odd is the fact that the same episode appears in every other platform that I use to distribute my podcast. For example, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Podchaser, etc. Seems obvious to me that YouTube is being a dick about this. There is nothing in that episode that comes even close to violating YouTube's guidelines of allowable and not allowable content. Nothing. My podcast is designed to be a vehicle for expressing my thoughts, my views, my conclusions, and observations on the human condition. Do I need to repeat that? As I have stated many times, nothing is sacred. Nothing is off limits when it comes to expressing ideas, real or imagined. Yes, I understand advocating violence is wrong, and measures to hold people accountable for advocating violence is perfectly all right, in my view. However, well, I don't have a problem with that, do I? No, of course not. People should not just go around advocating violence. It's just not a good idea. It's not nice, and it sometimes leads to actual violence. You know, like, why don't you go over and storm the Capitol building? You know where that story is. You know about that story. I don't have to repeat it here. So, here's the thing. All right, where was I? No, not here's the thing. Let me continue. I have never advocated violence or promoted unlawful behavior. Now, let me explain. Unlawful is not the same thing as illegal. Unlawful means it is something that violates the human principle of freedom and with responsibility, and don't violate other people's human rights. Illegal or legal means simply, well, in the case of illegal, it means that, the government made up a law, probably out of thin air, for absolutely no real reason or any justifiable reason, but just because they're dicks and they want to make a law, making life miserable for some reason. You know, like laws against marijuana, laws against nudity, and laws against, that sort of thing. Those are invalid laws, by the way. So, at any rate, it's not unlawful to speak words. It's not unlawful to write words. And I write words. I'm the word man. I write a lot of words. I say a lot of words. And, some of those words describe situations. And some of those words describe situations that are fiction, make-believe, imaginary. I make up shit because I'm an artist and I'm a fiction writer. I write fiction. I have written a couple of sexually explicit epic poems. Oh, I forgot fantasy. Epic. Let me see if I get it right now. I have written sexually explicit fantasy fiction poetry. Two epic poems written. When I say epic, I mean they were like 60, 70 pages long or so. A small book. And which you won't find on Amazon because Amazon has some rather misguided rules. And even though you can read some pretty raunchy stuff on books that you can get from Amazon, like there's one that was by Anonymous, yeah, wink, wink, that was just a story of some guy from the old days, back, I don't know when, 1800s or something, where he just spent the whole book telling about his sexual exploits and adventures, which apparently he didn't do anything else but go around having sex with women. From the day, when he was a little kid, even his nanny, whatever. Anyway, we won't get into that. And so, but you can get that book, no problem there. Oh, no. And by the way, the Marquis de Sade. You can get a Marquis de Sade's books on Amazon, which is a good thing because the Marquis was, brilliant. And he's been mislabeled and misjudged and mistreated for a long time. And it's just wrong because he was just writing fiction. And as it turns out, a lot of times fiction sort of mocks reality or draws upon or is inspired by reality or the actual human condition. And apparently, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but apparently the Marquis de Sade wrote stuff is a sort of, let's we say, sort of an expose and a mocking of the situations that actually occurred during his lifetime. And I read his letters from prison. There was over 200 of those letters that he wrote to his wife and so on, his mother-in-law and so on. And I have some insight into the thinking of Mr. Marquis de Sade. At any rate, he got a bad rap. And, so I'm not going to say he's my hero, but, he wrote stuff, and I'm going to guess that at some point that was probably his only sexual outlet because he was in a freaking prison or insane asylum or whatever. And, he didn't have a lot of sex. So any normal man has sexual desires and they're going to be dealt with one way or another. So, hey, express them in words. Why not? And, freedom of speech and all that. And yeah, that's a big thing. That's a very important big thing. Free speech. If you don't have free speech, you're not free. And since I'm an artist and I involve myself with free expression, free speech, free writing, free acting, free movies, everything. Freedom of speech involves all creative activities. And I am a staunch defender of free speech. Now, I've been on websites, for example, Gab, social media of some kind of, I don't know, anti-social media, I call it. But, there's some people say some pretty crappy shit on there. And they're disgusting, despicable, contemptible, low-life, scum of the earth kind of people. And they have some really disgusting, stupid ideas. But the CEO of Gab said, hey, I support free speech, and I support it, and I'm going to provide for that. They're going to have free speech on my website. And so they say whatever they want. And apparently there's no consequences. I'm certain, and he has said so himself, that if there is anyone advocating violence, like hurting somebody or destruction of property or something of that nature, that they would be turned into the police or, they would be dealt with properly. And I agree, and I hope he does that, and I think that's a good idea. But just saying somebody's a bad person, and I'm not even going to give examples of it, but, they talk about races and certain people of, let's say, of the Jewish persuasion, etc., and politicians and so forth. And it's just, it's disgusting, but I kind of keep an eye on the bad guys because, it's a good idea to keep an eye on the bad guys or the crazy wackos. So at any rate, let me continue reading what I wrote here about this situation. All right. As I said, I don't advocate or condone violence. Words mean what they mean, by the way. Words mean what they mean. However, this is not about that. This censorship is about stifling free speech and oppressing human ideas. The irony is they misinterpreted what I said. They are illiterate and incompetent, apparently. So instead of realizing their mistake and making it right, they stuck to their plot and denied me justice. Appeal rejected, they said. I suspect they didn't even read my appeal or understand it. If they had, they would have seen their mistake and made amends, I would think. My concern now is that what else will they find fault with? What can I say safely? Am I to self-censor myself now? Now, bear in mind, my podcast is produced by me in my studio and distributed through various outlets, platforms such as, like I said, Google and Spreaker and Spotify and iHeartRadio and so on. And YouTube happens to be one of those. And I'm not going to not say something on my podcast simply because YouTube might find it objectionable. That would be silly. I'm not going to record my podcast and write and present my podcast thinking, well, I can't say that on my podcast, even though I can say it anywhere else I want. But I can't say it because, YouTube might not like it. YouTube might reject it. So I'm not going to self-censor myself just to appease the censors and bad guys at YouTube. And I assume that this particular podcast episode will be on YouTube. I would hope, and I would think, because there's certainly nothing wrong with what I'm saying here now. I hope that YouTube agrees that I am not, involved in any kind of illegal activities. Well, I mean, unlawful activities. I'm certainly not advocating violence. I'm not even advocating any bad feelings towards YouTube. I mean, I like YouTube. There's a lot of entertainment on YouTube. There's a lot of entertainment and a lot of informative videos there and podcasts and so forth. There's a lot of information that is good and correct and accurate and valid and helpful. Like, for example, I want to see a tutorial on how to do something, like change the tire. Oh, simple. How do you change a tire on an Edsel or whatever? Edsel. Anyway, yeah, go there. There's a video. You want to learn how to bake cookies with raisins or without raisins and put some chocolate chips, chocolate chip cookies. Hey, bingo, you can go there and find that video. And I think that's a very good thing. And I think YouTube has the potential to be, shall we say, a learning tool. Now, granted, there are some things on YouTube, as well as the other places that present podcasts and other websites like social media places that they present things that are just not true. Lies, innuendo. There's a lot of attacks and ad hominems, libel, slander, defamation, anti-Semitism, Semitic, you know what I mean. And, anyway, the point is, I'm not going to self-censor myself. If YouTube doesn't like what I say, that's too bad. It's unfortunate because none of the other platforms seem to have a problem with what I said, because they probably are brighter people and they probably understood what I said. And I didn't say anything like YouTube implies that I said. I wasn't talking against the vaccine. Why would I? Hey, vaccines are good. Now, I'm not going into these stupid conspiracy theory nut job things because it's just absurd. I'm going to go into it. Not here anyway. And it's just, I think it's just absurd. I think it's silly. At any rate, I believe that there's a certain amount of incompetence there with YouTube. And now it could be the algorithms or their machines that like go through and spot certain words to flag, like, oh, you said a flaggy thing, let's just take that off because the machine said so, and they don't even bother to check that out and listen to the actual episode that I get presented and find out what I was talking about. They just assumed I was talking about something else or that I meant something else. I'm not opposed to vaccines. I think they're miraculous in a realistic, scientific, practical way. Miraculous being a figure of speech. I don't believe in actual miracles. So let me finish up what I'm saying here. All right. Hopefully it's just the machine made a mistake, and then when I sent in the appeal, that the same machine made another mistake and stuck the guns to, and just refused to send that over to a real person so they could listen to the episode and find out, exactly what it was I was talking about. Because I wasn't talking about what they thought I was talking about, apparently. I was just explaining why I wouldn't do maybe it was the title of the episode where I said something, and the title is there for you on the other places that actually carried the episode. All right, you can check it out, and please do. All right, and by the way, spread it around, share it with your friends and your whoever. Share it everywhere, because why not? All right, and let's see. Where was I? I said that self-temper. Am I to stifle my own thoughts and my own views? Am I to just simply not think, to not reason, to not try to even logically analyze the data? Am I just supposed to just accept whatever the acceptable opinions are nowadays? Not without proof, not without evidence, not without logic, not without some critical thinking. And that's the way I do things, by the way. I use calculated, logical conclusions and a basic base those on, usually, critical analytic observations. So it's sort of like critical thinking. And without that, you're just babbling, dude. I'm sorry. If anything you say is not substantiated with logical data and factual evidence and accurate descriptors and so on, then it's just babble. Sort of like Christianity. Anyway, it's madness what's going on today with the censoring. It's just unbelievable. I can't imagine that America would even tolerate that at all. I mean, at all. Particularly on a place like, let's say, Facebook, which is a public domain, which is Supreme Court said it, not me. Supreme Court said Facebook and other social media are public domains, and they have to abide by the principles of freedom, which is you don't violate the human rights of people. And if you censor them, you're violating their free speech rights. Now, I'm not talking about constitutional rights. That's beside the point. I have the right of free speech because, I was born. Pretty much like I have the right to keep and bear arms because I was born with the right. All right? And responsible people don't let with loaded guns. You don't need a law for that. You don't even need a constitutional amendment to say, the right to keep and bear arms is right there, Second Amendment. Forget the part about the militia and all whatever the fuck. That has nothing to do with this. The Supreme Court acknowledges the right. That's what the statement is. The right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. That means no law, none, zip, zero, zilch, nada. There's, find another way. You don't pass some stupid law that violates the Constitution. As for people, like individuals, you have a right to do whatever, say whatever, think whatever, read whatever. And if you don't like what I write, and you don't read it, or if, you come along a certain point and you say, hey, wait a minute, I don't like what he's saying, I'm not going to read anymore. Good for you. It's your right. Don't. But don't get me censored. Don't censor me. Find another way. Like, just bugger off. Don't pay attention to what I'm saying. All right? So, that's just blatant. All right, I've spent enough time on that. So, moving on to the next thing. Done with that. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Of course, I will try to be careful about what I title my episodes from now on, because I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm getting at or saying, but, it's difficult because in a lot of cases, people just simply don't understand English. And the reason for that is, one, because, maybe they just don't have a very good education in English. Even though I'm pretty sure they teach English and grammar and spelling and all that sort of thing in school. I'm pretty sure they do. At least they did when I went to school, which was, last century, but still. I remembered what I learned. And I learned that, the word whom has to have, one of those words in front of it, like to, of, by, to whom, by whom, of whom. You don't start out a sentence that says whom, without those words in front of it. Otherwise, it's wrong. The correct word would be who. Like, who's coming? Meaning who is coming, not whom. All right, English lesson. Anyway, moving on to another facet of things. I touched on it there a minute ago, and I'm thinking, hold on here, let me see, check my notes. Hold on, gonna take a break. All right, let's see. I'm going to do a little series of not just on this episode, but in coming episodes, and I'll start out with one item at a time, so to speak. And it's the title of this segment is called "If I Was President." Now, let's take into consideration the fact that the president has, supposedly, according to the Constitution, limited powers. He just can't do what he wants, anything he wants to do. I mean, however crazy. No, even if the Trumper actually did a lot of crazy shit and wrote a lot of executive orders, and that's not a new thing, by the way, and you should know that. But the question is, can you write an executive order, and is that legal? And to what degree can he write an executive order and make it a valid policy of the government? How much authority does it carry? And so on. And now that's not for me to answer at this point. But let's assume that the President of the United States can issue an executive order for the good of the country in order to further freedom and help protect freedom and help the government do its job, which are, let's say the 10th Amendment. Is it the 10th Amendment? Let's say the 10th Amendment. That kind of limits what the government should do, can do, would do. When they just ignore all that stuff. Just like they've ignored the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms. And the Supreme Court is a farce, by the way, and you should know that by the fact that they rule on certain things like 5-4. Really? 5-4? If that means if five of them voted, say, against the law that they're considering, and 4 of them voted for the law, in favor of the law that they're considering, that means either 4 of them are wrong or 5 of them are wrong. And if they're basing their decision upon the Constitution, which is clear, then it should be unanimous every time. How could you have a Supreme Court of 9 people, all of which, by the way, should not be Republicans or Democrats? They should be independent, not affiliated with any political party whatsoever, and they should be required to take an oath to that effect when they get appointed. They're just lapdogs for the president that appointed them. Whoopee! Yeah, that's a valid Supreme Court. So, if it's not unanimous, then it's not valid. So here we have a gun law. I heard there was like 60,000 gun laws in America, state, local, and federal, and so forth. And every one of them's invalid because says shall not be infringed means no. Zip laws, none. Zip, zero, zilch. Now, people would say, well, you just can't have everybody just running around shooting everybody with a gun shit. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that there's a way to deal with things. Like the gun thing. You don't end gun violence in America, like these shootings at schools and so on, in these gun-free zones, by simply passing a law and taking away people's guns. That's not going to solve the problem. And how any intelligent person doesn't understand this is beyond comprehension. Find another way. Like, for example, responsible people should look out for their family members. And, like let's say there's a family and they have a son and he's just not that bright. Say autistic. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about autistic people. I'm just saying, for example, no, let's not. That's too specific. I'm not going to go there. Let's say that because you're going to assume that I said that autistic people were bad, something or other. No, so forget that. I didn't mean it. Seriously, just delete that. I could delete it, but I can't at this point. So let's just say there's a mom and a dad, and they have a child, and the child is growing up, and the child is a teenager now, and the child is like violently natured, or the child is not, okay, I'm just going to say retarded, or the child has a propensity for violence or cruelty to others and so on. You can pretty much decide, mom, dad, that your son should not be having dangerous weapons. Not a good idea to let your teenage son have a pistol or a rifle, certainly not an AK-15 or whatever they are. I mean, just be responsible parents. Don't let your children play with guns if they're not responsible. Parents should know if their children are responsible or not. So that's one way. Take care of that. Oh, by the way, gun-free zones. Get rid of those immediately. There should not be any place in this country that should be called a gun-free zone. Not even courthouses. Not even prisons. I'm not saying prisoners should have guns. Don't be stupid. Don't even think that. What I'm saying is that people should be responsible for themselves and their friends and neighbors and so on. Now, they kind of had a good idea with this red flag things, like, the man's got, we should maybe take his guns because he's like, he gets into a drunken stupor once in a while and starts shooting freaking neighbor's dog and shit. All right. By the way, if you're going to do a red flag thing, do the same thing for everybody, including cops, who obviously are irresponsible psychopaths that, like to go around shooting people, particularly black people, apparently. That racist thing. Damn, I hate that. Anyway, find another way. You're not going to find it by taking everybody's gun away. Because, for example, myself. Now, I don't know. I can't say if I have a gun or don't have a gun, but, guess what? I have a gun. All right? Or more. So, the point is, I have the right to have a gun. I have a right to do what I want with that gun. I mean, have it, buy it, sell it, make it, give it away, whatever. Now, would I be a responsible person to give my gun to a 4-year-old? No. Why would I do that? That's insane. Would I give a gun to a blind man? No. Would you let a violent psychopath have a gun? Why would anybody let that happen? I could name a few, by the way. I'm not going to, well, maybe I shouldn't, really. I think that, I don't know. There are people that are like just obviously out of their minds. They shouldn't have guns. And I know criminals don't obey the laws, which is another case right there. Oh, yeah, law-abiding citizens, yeah, we're not going to get a gun because it's against the law. We're going to be criminals now because we get a gun because, but we can't. It's against the law. But I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, because I have a right to. But the law, screw the law. The law is wrong. All right, so let me finish up here. I got about 10 minutes. First segment called If I Was the President. Now, let's say executive orders are okay and they're legal and I could do that. And up to a limit, I suppose. There's a limit to what a president can do by executive orders. And I think that overreach there is a little bit much. I think Donald Trump did a little overreach in the executive orders. But let's say I was president. So, okay, we've got that covered. You know what I'm saying. If it's possible to do certain things, let's do it. All right. So, first day in office. If I was elected, like that's going to happen, Hey, wait a minute. Donald Trump was elected, wasn't he? Huh? Really? So, well, if he was elected, anybody could be. Even a psychopath, well, another psychopath could be elected again sometime. All right, so if I was president, first day in office, I mean, take my oath of office there on the front of the building there, and with my hand on the Constitution, by the way. That's the first one. All right, here I am. I'm going to be inaugurated into the office of President of the United States, and they say, put your hand on the, not Bible. It has nothing to do with the Bible. Nothing. This is political. This is social in regards to a job of running a country or leading a country or being president to guiding light of a country government. I'm going to put my hand on the Constitution. Put your hand on the Constitution and raise your other hand. Put your left hand on the Constitution and raise your right hand. Okay? Right? Constitution. Now, I don't mean the real one. I mean, not the original, because it's under safekeeping. Under hydrothermal controlled environment. It might crumble into dust if you take it out in the open. But let's say a copy of the Constitution. And you can get those anywhere. You can buy those by the hundreds or the thousands through various places that sell them, bookstores and stuff. All right, put your hand on there, take an oath. All right, Constitution, not the Bible. That's just archaic nonsense anyway. All right, so that's number one. And I've taken an oath, and I give my little speech there. I've been elected. I've been inaugurated. I am now the President of the United States. And, starting today, this is what I'm going to do, which is perfectly legal. I've checked with the lawyers and so on. Constitutional lawyers, by the way, who are not idiots and who have not been jerked around and turned into, puppets or lunatics by the right or the left or whatever. So, first executive order as president. And I'm saying, let's suggest that we've got a situation like we do now with, 50 senators on one side, 50 on the other, which I think is ridiculous. I thought we had some independence in the Senate, by the way. Anyway, so do the hoopla thing and get back to the office. I'm going to do some serious presidential business here. First thing, or one of the first things. One, give notice to everybody in the country that I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, or else. I took an oath, and it's a kind of a silly thing at the end there, so help me God. So help me is better, but okay. I may not change that one right away. Maybe in my second inauguration after my first term is up. Will I be reelected? No. Would I even be in office for 4 years? It's unlikely, because I'm going to issue orders, and I'm going to have my people at the Congress and the House of Delegates, make some laws to repeal like a lot of them. So one of my executive orders would be, let's say, what could I pick on first thing? First thing, all right. One, executive order. I'm trying to think. What's important? Okay. One, we'll end the drug war. The war on drugs. Bam, over, done. So all of you people, DEA, you're done. You're fired. You're out of there. Now you see, I can't fire them. I can't end that because that takes Congress. But I can issue an executive order saying, stand down, motherfucker. You're not doing this anymore. You're putting people in jail that didn't do anything to anybody else. Didn't violate any other human beings' human rights. Didn't violate anything. Come on. Marijuana? That's insane. So we would take a good look at the DEA and do what we had to do to get rid of that area. The ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Yeah, do away with that. Not necessary. There are other, there are just too many departments here. ABC departments. Homeland Security, which sounds a lot like Germany to me, buddy. I think we would change the name of that right away. Oh, let's see. Let's call it what it should be. You know, FBI. I know a lot of people are down on the FBI right now, but that's because it's very political, and that would stop too, I would hope. Some point in my tenure as president, I would get those people straightened out. I would take a real good look at the CIA and those other organizations, NSA, CIA, TSA, all the terrorist organizations, the IRS. Oh, by the way, executive order. I would make it known that from now on, the IRS cannot apply the income tax illegally to people who don't owe it. And who would that be? People who are not corporations, because the income tax applies to corporations. It's the law. If you read the laws and the regulations on the IRS, income tax laws and regulations, you will see clearly, if you're able to read English, I know it's legalese and all that, but it's clear. And oh, by the way, Dave Champion's book, Income Tax Shattering the Myths, is a very good book on that subject and will explain it to you very well. But the income tax doesn't apply to people who are not incorporated, not incorporated, non-incorporated. So, IRS, no more of that thieving, lying, stealing, terrorizing people over the income tax. Nobody is liable for that except corporations. Tax, the direct tax has to be, on a privilege. And earning a living is not a privilege. It is a right. It's not debatable. That's a fact. And you know it, and I know it, or anybody that, read the law, read the Constitution, whatever, you know that. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. That's a couple of things I would do as on my first day or so of being a president of the United States. Another thing, I would end all foreign invasions, criminal acts of war on foreign countries, like war crimes and crimes against humanity in other countries, because it's a crime according to the United Nations Charter, which the United States is a member of and signed, as members of the United Nations, that, if you go to a foreign country and they haven't, attacked your country, then you're a criminal. And so I would end all foreign illegal wars, all of them, including, Iraq, Iran, Syria, all them other places. Because I'm sorry, I remember the Vietnam War. I was opposed to that too, because, it was a crime. And so we're not doing that. So anyway, I would do that as well. We take a look at the CIA and all its illegal activities around the world and put an end to that nonsense. I know I would be dead by the end of the week, right? All right, that's enough of that for now. I'll continue with that line of thinking here and do another segment on if I was the president on the next episode. I hope this one doesn't mess up with the censor people, because, they're bad guys and they shouldn't be censoring me. Anyway, thank you very much. Pass it along, share it. I'll catch you next time, and appreciate you listening. And good luck. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.